Well, good morning and welcome back to Friday. Once again, just thought I would put together a couple of little links and resources that I myself have been using over the last 7 days. So let's just jump straight into it. First up, a couple of weeks ago, I used to be a really big gamer, PC gamer, Xbox, PlayStation, you name it. I was into it, and over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I kind of drifted away. Sold my Xbox, sold my PlayStation. Still had a PC, and whenever we obviously went into this enforced lockdown, I thought I would fire up the old PC and have a little bit of a play with some games. So I've been playing with Skyrim, a great sort of RPG game, and also good old faithful Grand Theft Auto 5. And at the time, I was kind of having a little bit of a play. I realised that, way back when I was playing Skyrim, I would go in and rather than play the missions, I would just get on a horse and just go dandering. And of course, now I love to go dandering and actually look at some of the landscapes. And it just so happens that I'm not alone. There's a whole movement of folks that are actually using the in-game engine to actually take pictures. Red Dead Redemption 2 seems to be one of the more popular ones. In fact, there was actually an article on the Next Web where a photographer that I follow, Sean Tucker, had actually sort of said that he had used some of the scenes in Red Dead Redemption 2 to sort of hone his street photography skills. And this then led me to a hashtag that I'm actually now following on Instagram, sort of virtual street photography, virtual photography from within video games. And I must admit, some of them are absolutely beautiful. Now, unfortunately, my PC's quite old, so I'm not getting the real effect with some of the graphics there, but it's still a lot of fun just going in, having a bit of a wander around and see whether I can pick up any street photo, any photography within those places. But yeah, have a look through that article. So all the links will be below, and then that little link that takes you off to the Instagram sort of hashtag. I say some of the lighting, some of the setups are just beautiful. Second little resource for you to check out is actually a couple of things sort of related. I'm not sure whether you are a subscriber to On Landscape. It's an online landscape photography magazine that's been going for many years, well over 10 years, I think. Now, I'm a subscriber, and if you are a subscriber, one of the real benefits is if you've just newly subscribed, you can actually download a huge back catalogue. I think they started publishing from release 50, and I think we're now well over 200, so you've got 150 odd PDFs, landscape photography, some fantastic work in there, really great insight, and of course episode numbers 1 to 50 I think you can still read online, so definitely worth checking out. I think it's £19 a quarter or something. Really good. So what I've been doing is I've actually been downloading all of the back issues. I've been a subscriber for a long time, but I just never got round to downloading the back issues. And I actually came across in release number one, a webcast between Tim Parkin and Joe Cornish. Now, as is quite often the case with masters in their field of expertise, be it a photographer, a musician, artist, whoever, whatever, I could sit and listen to experts and masters till the cows come home. And Joe's no different. He's a phenomenal teacher. I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of his talks as well, and he's clearly extremely passionate about what he does. Now, what I find interesting, and I've actually asked myself this a couple of times over the last number of months, in today's era of kind of oversaturated, very samey images that we are bombarded by through social media, is there still a place for the classics, for the subtle beauty that someone like Joe represents? And I would wholeheartedly say absolutely. Joe's work is phenomenal, and it's phenomenal in an understated way in a number of his images. When I was travelling the last 6 months in the van, one of the libraries up in Shetland actually had a couple of Joe's books, and I was able to rent those temporarily while we were on the road and just flick through them. And looking at some of the images in the book, I think if you were to put those up today, alongside some of the oversaturated craziness that we see on Instagram, I'm sure a lot of people whose eyes have just been, looking for that nuclear sunset, or those, statuesque people standing in the frame, they would probably dismiss a lot of the images. But one of the things I love about someone like Joe's work is it takes time to really let your eye wander around the image. And I find myself so often asking myself lots of questions about his images, maybe why he did a certain thing. And that's why something like the webcast that Joe and Tim put together is just so fantastic. What Joe does is he takes 3 images, one that he thinks works, one that he doesn't think quite works, and then one from his archive. And it's really enlightening to hear him talk about his process regarding composition. I think we've all been guilty of rushing in and rushing around and taking the image, and maybe fooling ourselves into waiting for the light. So we're happy to sort of hang around and wait for light. But are we actually taking our time over the composition? And it's just really, really interesting to hear Joe talk. I'm really interested to hear him talk about sort of a picture within a picture, and I've heard him say this on a number of occasions, how much joy he gets out of the fact that within his images he sometimes will see an image within an image. So I would really recommend checking out that webcast. I'm pretty sure it looks like that webcast is actually free, so you don't even need to be a subscriber. I'm not sure how many of the other webcasts, he's done a number of webcasts with Tim and with On Landscape, but wholeheartedly grab a cup of tea, sit down and just listen to Joe, pick up some tips and just look at some of his work. Really, really worthwhile doing. Oh, it was getting a bit chilly and I got myself a cup of tea. Anyway, so my final little sort of resource for this week is a photographer called David Dosher. Now, probably a lot of people out there have heard of David before. I've been following his work for several years. In fact, it was some of his books that I really turned to when I was in the throes of making the decision to leave a very well-paid job and go off and sort of try to make this thing called photography work. Now, David, he actually wrote a book with the same title, but he started a podcast. I've realised actually that in the last probably 12 to 18 months, podcasts have really come back into fashion again. I actually listen to a bunch of podcasts. Well, I say that. I normally stick my old wireless headphones in, nodding off to sleep, and I wake up and there's been about 50 podcasts that have played, maybe subliminally, while I've been sleeping, so I have to re-listen to them again. And one of the podcasts that I listen to religiously, and I listen to multiple times over, is David's A Beautiful Anarchy. Now, I think to date there's been 21 or 22 episodes, each around 12 to 15 minutes long. So already right there, if you have not listened to any of these before, you've got well over a couple of hours worth of listening material. I listened to them, as I said before, multiple times over. In fact, I've just sort of started re-listening to them again. And David has always been very proficient at and eloquent at kind of portraying what he's trying to get across. And just to sort of pull out some little sort of nuggets that I've sort of picked up, from some of the episodes. We've all felt like a bit of an imposter at times, imposter syndrome, especially as we look at other folks' work and we just see their successes and we think, what are we trying to do here? He approaches that very well. I think one of the veins that runs through a lot of his podcasts is how important it is to be ourselves and not to copy. Now, I don't even think it's the copy, but just to be ourselves. We're vulnerable. We don't have all of our stuff sorted out. Some of us don't even know the direction that we're taking, but the most unique thing that we can be is be ourselves, and he really does pull this out in a couple of different episodes really well. I think he's actually wrote a couple of books on this as well, just management of our time. Our time now is completely pulled all over the place. And what's been interesting actually for me from a personal perspective, and I'm sure you as well, given the fact that we're all in this situation, there's probably been a bunch of things that we've wanted to do and to achieve, but we've always said, oh, don't really have time. Well, now, of course, that's all we have. We've just got loads of time on our hands. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there who have got a lot of other responsibilities, homeschooling and family, and maybe they're still going out and working. But there is also going to be a number of folks out there watching this today who have got more time on their hand than they did a month ago. And what I have found is that there's some tasks that I had on my long-term to-do list, and even some tasks that I kind of jotted down at the start of this thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great to get some of these ticked off? And I haven't gone near them. And that's telling me that perhaps they weren't important to me to begin with. So the whole concept of kind of managing one times and learning to say no to the lesser important things and yes to the more important things. He talks about deeper work, and this is something that I think I alluded to in one of my previous vlogs. Maybe it was the start of the ICM one or something, or the healing one. Kind of deeper work, and the fact that I have perhaps fallen out of love a little bit with the individual image and more sort of inclined now to think about projects. And I think that's where that deeper work comes from, and that's something that I'm really challenging myself to do. Of course, there's been a bunch of folks stuck indoors have maybe been thinking of kind of doing some indoor projects and stuff, but of course the majority of people, once this is over, are just going to perhaps go back to the old ways. For me, I've really sort of said to myself, am I going to challenge myself to sort of make deeper work, and deeper work that actually resonates first and foremost with me. And I don't think simply going out and shooting yet another sunrise is what's called for from my perspective. Just one of the final points that he brings up in one of the most recent episodes, and it's something that I think I blogged about a couple of months ago. With everything that's been going on in my own personal life, and now of course with the situation that's going on in the wider circle, we sometimes have to ask ourselves as artists, what's the point? The last thing this world perhaps needs is another photograph. And actually David approaches it from a slightly different, I won't do any spoilers, David actually approaches it from a different sort of mindset, and his words actually sort of helped me sort of come some way to answer that question about what's the point. So David Dosher's A Beautiful Anarchy podcast series. It's an ongoing podcast series. There's 22 episodes or so now. Go give it a listen. Really good. So there you go, folks. Hope you find some of those little resources useful. Just some of the things that I've been busying myself these past 7 days. I think it's time for my daily, not annual, my daily yard time. Very fortunate that we do have a nice walk along the coast, 3-mile walk. So get out, do my daily yard time, and then back for the evening. It's Good Friday. So I guess happy Easter as well. Hopefully everyone is staying safe and well. And just one last thing. This past week, or these past sort of 10 days or so, I have been starting a little series on Twitter and on YouTube and on Facebook, just sharing some of the beautiful coastlines that we have here in Ireland. So 7 o'clock every morning I'm posting up just a different coast while I'm having my morning cup of joe. #coasts with coffee, I think it is. And I'll put just a small selection of those images up just to close off this something for the weekend, sir. Until next time, guys, stay safe, and we'll catch up again soon. Bye-bye.